Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a good day. Today, we're going to talk about um, a new subject that we're starting here in 2026, which is in regards to cooking, being more independent with your food, your kitchen, your groceries, your money, your finances. And I'm going to start off with covering why and what inspired me to do this. Okay, because that is very important. In 2024, late 2024, the Trump administration, through Doge and through seeking where there was fraud and money being wasted, if you will, within our federal government, had stopped the EBT food stamps from going out in November of 2024. And oh my gosh, the freak out of many, many women who were single and had many children. A lot of them were unmarried, had a lot of children out of wedlock. And they were responsible for going on welfare for housing, Section 8, and getting their utilities paid and their food paid. And EBT wasn't just covering food, let's be real. I mean, they were getting their hair done, their nails done, all kinds of stuff going on with EBT. They were able to go to fast food restaurants, and it was amazing what EBT was covering. Now, nothing wrong with any of that. If it's allowable and it's legal, what can you do? Um, but within all of that, the administration found a lot of fraud. And thank God that they went looking for that, because the people who really need it, which I do believe are single mothers who are working or doing something with their life, like as was requested by the administration, to at least put in some volunteer work, which, by the way, ladies, you can do online. Okay, you can even work online 20 hours a week. And meaning online means you're at home, you're with your children, so it can be done. Which was great. I think that was wonderful. I think it's awesome that they're able to even get rid of the fraud. So we should all be happy that the administration is looking to do this. But I want to bring up something that never seems to be mentioned, and then we're going to go into the cooking. And that's the reason why I'm here today to even start talking about cooking. Is, well, let me explain. First of all, let me touch on, where are the fathers? Where are the fathers, these children? Now, I was married and divorced, okay, by the father of my three, one man. And there was a court order for child support by the Department of Revenue. Department of Revenue is a state department. However, they are somewhat connected to the IRS, which is federal. Lo and behold, this man who has worked, has collected a check, who's gotten a tax refund every year, who's bought cars, homes, you name it. He's lived his life, owes me over $60,000 in child support. And I'm not the only one. I know of other women who've had to raise their children without receiving any child support, worked, and their kids were latchkey, and that did affect the children. Now, my thing is, Doge is doing all of this, right? Cutting off, what people need. Some people do need, to be able to find the fraud. Again, appreciated. But why isn't Doge looking into why these different Department of Revenues, which, like I said, child support court ordered, didn't go after these men for the child support that a judge had said needed to be paid? My oldest right now is in his 40s. My youngest is in his late 30s. How long does the Department of Revenue need to collect this money? And my question is, how dare you take tax from me or take any money out of my Medicare or charge me anything when this money is owed to me over $60,000? Why aren't you collecting that from him now? He's still getting a refund. He's still making money. How many women are in my position that they've had to raise their kids and pay for their kids on their own? Well, let's now move over to these women who have all these children with these men who they did not marry. Well, guess what? They still didn't have these children by themselves. There were still men involved. And if they couldn't, I don't even know how to put it. They don't need to be married. They made the child. Okay? The man should be supporting his children. Where is the Department of Revenue and what are they doing? Because as far as I see, they're useless. And if our tax money is paying to keep their lights on, I don't know why. I really don't. To collect state tax? From what? Many, many single women who are raising children on their own and the fathers are just living like without a care in the world? You don't find a problem with this? Anyhow, I'm here as a former single mother to help out the single mothers out there and the women out there who want to have more control over the food in their kitchen, over the food that they're storing in their freezer, okay, and the food that they're eating. And I want to teach them through what I've been learning through these chefs on YouTube. And they're on different platforms, but the ones I watch are on YouTube. And because I have premium with YouTube, we don't have to worry about being bombarded with ads every 2 seconds. So I can share these videos with the audience. And they can watch, how, for example, fresh pasta is being made. And how, Alfredo sauce is being made. And let me tell you something, it only takes a few ingredients, not a lot of ingredients. And every week I will bring more and more onto the show to show you how to make, for example, bread for you and your children. So you don't have to worry about going out and buying bread. When you've got the ingredients in your house, you just put it together. You're home, you're taking care of them. You're home long enough to be able to cook these meals. I want to show you meals that you can make to where you can store a large portion of them in the freezer. So there are nights and days where you could just pull it out of the freezer, make it for your kids and your family. And while you're saving money, you've got control over the ingredients. You don't got to worry about what's inside the food your family and you are eating, like we've had to. This questionable food. I'll give you an example. I don't buy ground meat anymore from the grocery store because I've heard that not only ground meat is in it. I actually buy the actual meat, beef, pork, whatever it is. I bring it home and I grind it here. There's a woman on YouTube, and I'll show you her eventually, that chops the meat up herself with a knife. Well, it's actually a cleaver. She doesn't even use a kitchen appliance. She just does it herself. This is taking control of your life, people, so that you never have to go and say, I need EBT to go buy a bunch of junk that are in bags and boxes, and you're feeding your kids and making them foggy brained, and they're ending up with autism, and they're ending up with ADHD, and they're ending up with thyroid issues, and they're overweight. And there's only so much the administration can do to clean this problem up. You yourself can take control over what your family is eating right now. So we're going to go over that right now. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to play is making fresh pasta. And what I'll do is I'm going to play this video straight through, and then I'll make comments about it after, because there's a couple of things I just want to add in commentary. Okay, so let me get that ready for you. All right, so here we go.
Today I'm showing you all how to make a simple recipe for a basic homemade pasta dough. I'm not making the fanciest or the best or the most luxurious recipe, but it's easy and you probably already have all the ingredients in your house. So if the pasta aisle at your grocery store is empty, don't panic, have no fear, it's super easy to make at home. First things first, for God's sakes, wash your hands, people, and sanitize your work surface. Then you'll need 2 cups of flour. Dump the flour onto your clean work surface and create a little well in the center. Then crack in 3 eggs. Add in a tablespoon of olive oil and a teaspoon of salt. Then, using a fork, whisk together the eggs and begin to slowly incorporate the flour from around the sides of the well. Continue bringing the flour into the center like this until the dough has pulled together enough to be worked by hand. From here, you'll want to bring the dough together to form a shaggy ball. If it's too dry, like mine was here, then you can just add a touch of water. And if it's too wet, then all you have to do is add in a little bit more flour. Once the dough has completely pulled together, you'll need to knead the dough for about 10 minutes. The dough will go from looking shaggy and rough to smooth and taut, and you'll know it's done when you push a finger into the dough and the dough springs back. Wrap up your dough in cling film and then let it rest for a minimum of 30 minutes. Once the dough has rested, cut it in half so that you have more manageable portions to work with. Lightly flour your work surface and start rolling out your pasta dough. From here, we're going to laminate the dough 3 times. So all that means is we're going to fold it in thirds like this, then roll it out, fold it in thirds again, then roll it out, and then repeat this process one more time. From there, we want to roll out our dough into a large rectangle. If you find your dough is shrinking back, leave it for a few minutes to let the gluten relax, then go back in. Once it's completely rolled out, we want it to be thin enough to see the color of our fingers through it. From here, you can cut the pasta dough into whatever shape you like, and today I'm just doing some long tagliatelle style pasta. To make this style of pasta that I'm making, just lightly flour the surface of the dough and fold it up into a rectangle. Then gently slice it into strips. Once you've unraveled your pasta, toss it in a dusting of flour to stop it from sticking to itself. And then from here, you can portion it, wrap it and freeze it, or refrigerate it. If you're hungry like me, you can cook it straight away. Just remember that fresh pasta cooks quickly and will probably only need about 2 to 3 minutes in salted boiling water. I'm serving mine with my simple tomato sauce, which is super easy to make. I'll leave the link to that on the screen and also in the description box below. Then I just added in some arugula that we needed to use up and a little bit of old Parmesan that was just chilling in the fridge, and then topped it off with some olive oil. There you go. No need to panic if there isn't pasta at the store. It's super easy to make your own. It may be a little bit more time consuming, but let's be real, we all have more time on our hands than normal right now. So really, no excuse. I'll probably
Okay, so she just goes on now about her channel. So let's talk about this for 1 second because there's a couple of things. I'm going to leave this link in the chat for you guys to go back and look at if you want to follow her steps. And she really does a great job making it easy, okay? Because it is easy. So let me just say a few things. Most people will say that to make pasta, you need the double O flour, or you need the bread flour, and you can get that at the grocery store. But you can use all-purpose flour, yes. It is possible. The only thing that changes is the texture. I've used all-purpose. I've even combined all-purpose with like bread flour, and it's fine. Okay? That's number 1. Number 2, you notice that she's using water. There's some water that might be needed, but really oil and eggs, olive oil especially. Remember, I'm Italian, so I'm going to go in that direction. Is really the best thing. So if you're going to add liquid to a dry dough, let's say it's just too dry and you need to moisturize it, it would be better if you use olive oil. Okay. The third thing I want to say is, and again, she does a great job, so you follow her directions, but I'm just trying to give you these tips to help out. She's kind of making an amount for one person, as you could see. It looks like it's good for one person. But you can make enough, and I can give you that recipe as well, where you can, when she's got the dough, and she hasn't really rolled it out yet, it's kind of in a large square, if you will. And she starts to roll it out. You can actually just leave it in that state, cut it in 4, and then wrap each one up and put it in the freezer. And sometimes I'll wrap each one up separately, each fourth, and then stick it in a large freezer bag together, and then just put on the bag fresh pasta. So then when I feel like making enough for me and Dennis, and then even for his lunch and the next day, so you're talking about enough for a family, I'll pull out a fourth and then do what she did and roll it out, and cut it to where I've got fettuccine strips, because that's basically what she's got. She's making fettuccine. And that looks like a fettuccine, or I think they call it tagliatelle, also looks like that too. And again, you could also add more flour if you want a larger portion of pasta. Then, of course, naturally, you're going to add some egg. You're going to add more egg, and you're going to add more olive oil. Okay, so water is really not the way to go. You really want to go towards olive oil when moisturizing your dough. And like she said, if it's too moist, you put flour also. But if you're like really, and I want to do this the authentic way, I want to do this the way the chefs do it, well, then that would be 00 flour, and that can be found at any grocery store. And again, you could also do this with bread flour, and it's good to have it on hand. I always have these flours in the house. They're not that expensive. I mean, they're not cheap. Maybe for $6, you can get a bag. But how many dinners are you going to get out of that? Many, many, many. That's what you got to look at. You can't look at the amount that you're spending initially. You got to look at how much you're going to get out of that. And if you think about it, you might be spending, 10 to 50 cents per meal for your family if you were to go and actually figure out how many meals you're going to get out of that bag. So it's totally worth it. So again, I will leave you this in the chat after the show. Now, what I'm going to show you is why bother even showing you how to make pasta without showing you how to make a dish with it, right? And what I'm going to show you is how to make Fettuccine Alfredo, the Italian way, not the American way where you need cream and butter and all of that. No, the authentic way. And why? 1, because it's authentic, and 2, because of the way this guy makes it, it could be made for a big family. So a family of 5, family 6, you can make this meal and feed many people. Usually if you make it the way a restaurant makes it, it's dish by dish. So that's why I'm going to share this with you now. And he's going to show you, like I said, how to make the fettuccine Alfredo sauce, like I said, for a large family. But he's also going to show you the right ingredients. Now, most people use Parmesan. I'm going to tell you this now because I don't think he mentions it. Whatever cheese you use, he uses Romano. Locatelli is Romano. Whatever one you prefer, do not get the already grated cheese. You got to get the block and grate it yourself. The reason why is because from the grocery store, the already grated cheese has little bits of plastic in it. And so, there's something in it that stops it from melting well. So get yourself the block. Again, you may say, well, Anne Marie, that's $5 for the block. Right. How many meals are you going to get out of that? That's what you have to figure out. So let me add this video here. And again, this video, this link will be put in the chat below so you can hear it. So here we go.
Alfredo pasta is the most popular pasta in America. But how do you take a recipe from Rome, bring it to America, and completely change it? There is no cream in Alfredo. If you add cream, you take Rome out of the dish. And you add too much into Alfredo, then you completely change the recipe. Today I'm going to show you the ultimate Alfredo sauce. Creamy without the cream. 3 ingredients makes Fettuccine Alfredo. 250 grams of egg fresh fettuccine should be enough for 2 people. To make fresh fettuccine, you can watch my video of how to make fresh pasta, or you can just buy the fresh fettuccine from the shop. 200 grams of grated pecorino cheese, or you can use Parmigiano cheese. I use pecorino because I love pecorino, and it's Roman. 80 grams of butter. It's about 40 grams of butter per person. In the original Alfredo restaurant in Rome, they use a specific technique. If you look at this video at how the Alfredo is made in the original restaurant in Rome, they take the pasta out of the pot together with the pasta water, and they put it in a tray together with the butter, and then they add the cheese. And then it's all got to do with the way it's mixed. And the way the technique used to mix, it's what makes the Alfredo sauce. But let's be honest, it's not easy. It's a bit difficult for everyone. The recipe I'm making today is for everyone, even for people who never cooked pasta in their life. I'm gonna make a no-fail Alfredo sauce that anyone can make. And I think it's even better than the one from Rome. If you look again at the video from the Alfredo in Rome, you can see that it may be a little bit too watery, and the pasta kind of becomes way too soggy for my taste. I like to have an al dente pasta. But of course, it's good the way they do it. It's the signature dish. But can we make it a little bit better than the original without changing the ingredients? Let's try. I believe we can. Let's start by boiling the fettuccine. In a large pot of water, we put 1 tablespoon of rock salt or sea salt. Now we boil the fresh fettuccine, which they should cook within 2 to 3 minutes. Quickly mix. Let's get the pasta water from the fettuccine, and let's add the pasta water in the bowl. Half a cup. What we try to do here is to turn this pecorino or Parmigiano into cream. Let's put the left of the water. And can you see how the hot water is melting the cheese? Beautiful. Let me add a little bit more water. Don't be scared of the water because the pasta will absorb it anyway. Great job, great job. Look at that. Look how creamy this is. That's better than Alfredo. Make sure you keep some water in here just in case you need more for the end. But we want this cream to be kind of runny, not too thick, all right? This is the ultimate Alfredo, ladies and gentlemen. All right, the pasta is ready. So let's quickly melt the butter. Let's spread the butter and melt it before we add the pasta in. All right, the pasta is ready. Look at that. Beautiful and al dente. We don't want the pasta to be overcooked. Now let's put the pasta in a little bit of water, straight in the butter, and make sure you put the flame on a low heat now, okay? We don't want to burn the pasta. All right, what we're going to do now is to make sure that the pasta makes love with the butter, okay? So at the moment, the butter needs to give flavors to the pasta. We kind of want the pasta to absorb the bala, if you know what I mean. Now, this is an important step. We have a pot here, very hot. Look at the steam. We're gonna put this right on top. What the steam now is gonna do is gonna keep the pot nice and hot, but not overcooking a pasta, okay? So, this is the moment I've been waiting for. See the cream? A little bit thick, a bit too thick. Let's add a little bit more pasta water. Let's make it a little bit runny. See how runny this is? Can you see how runny this is? This is the pecorino mix that we did before. Now let's put it in there. I'll give you Alfredo. This is Alfredo sauce. Look how creamy. Look at that. Look at this amazing pecorino cream. Look how creamy this is. There is no cream in there. Look how sensational. By doing this on top of the pot, we're not actually burning any cheese. We're not going to get lumps. We're just going to get a lot of cream. To be honest, we have so much cream here that I could make even half kilo pasta. Look, have you ever seen a creamier Alfredo than this? Please tell me, have you ever seen a creamier Alfredo? I never did. Look at that. Now we're going to keep mixing now until the cheese kind of gets a little bit thicker, if you know what I mean. This is the beauty of cooking. Things can happen. So see, this is way too much liquid. So on a very low heat, we're going to put this back on the stove. And I just want the liquid to kind of disappear a little bit, okay? So got the pasta still nice and al dente, but I want this cream to thicken up, to become thick. All right, so make sure the stove is on a low heat. We wait for this liquid to become thicker. And in no time, the Alfredo sauce thickened up. We're ready to serve the ultimate Alfredo. This creamy pasta is now ready to be served. See the cream? I'm gonna put the cream all over it, just like that. Look at that, look at that, look at that, look at that. You tell me if you've ever seen a creamy Alfredo like this, without the cream, of course. This is the creamiest Alfredo I've ever seen in my life. Look at that. Do you need more cheese on top? Well, if you want more cheese on top, then you're a cheese maniac. You are obsessed with cheese. I think there is plenty of cheese on it. But if you want more, go for it. Let's do the test and see how creamy this is. The pecorino kick mixed with butter. Ooh, butter and pecorino really love each other. I think I'm going to use a combination more and more lately. Butter and pecorino. Wow. This is the Alfredo.
Okay. Italians, they love to make love with their food. Anyway, I'm going to put his link down, and I'll tell you what, it wouldn't be a bad idea if you follow Vincenzo, because he's very funny, and he's got a lot of dishes like this that he can show you how to make. And as you can see, when he was making his pasta, he said, oh, this is good for 2 people. But the sauce he made was good for 4, 5, 6 people. So you could put more pasta in there and get away with the amount of pasta water. Why is pasta water used? When you make fresh pasta, there's still, and even some good pastas, you don't really get this from Ronzoni and, the low grade pastas. You'll find that they've got flour still on them. And when the flour is put in the water, and then plus the boiling of the pasta itself, it's got starch in the water. When you mix the starch water with the cheese, that's what thickens it up. That's why when he puts it back on the heat, the low grade heat, and he says, let's see it thicken up, he knows that the starch from the water and the cheese together heating up is going to thicken that sauce, which is exactly what happened. but he made enough to serve a family with the sauce. So you can do that. Now, this is 3 ingredients. The difference between Parmesan, and again, you got to get the block and grate it yourself. Parmesan is not as salty as Pecorino Romano. If you notice, he put no salt. He added nothing else. It was just the butter, and he didn't even say salted butter. He just said butter and the pecorino. When you use Parmesan, you might tend to put a little bit of salt and pepper. Now, on top of that, I wouldn't have put anything on top of it. I wouldn't even have put cheese on top of it. I would have put a little bit of black pepper and served it as is. Sometimes I'll saute a little bit of chicken, or I'll saute a couple of shrimps and put it on top and serve it with a protein. And that's a perfect and very cost effective. Okay? Like I said, when I make my pasta and I do what that lady did, which is where and she says you have to knead it for 10 minutes. No, you don't. You could knead it sometimes up to 5 minutes, and it starts to make that where it all comes together and it's a ball and it's bouncing back. You don't necessarily, sometimes between 5 and 10 minutes. It really matters your environment, how humid it is, the temperature, all of that. You'll see, you'll be able to see. And if you watch her video, you see what it needs to look like. And in that state, she wraps it up and she lets it sit for 30 minutes. After you've done that, and you take the wrapping off of it, and it's still in that bowl, you just shape it into a square, that ball. Cut it into 4s. And you wrap each 4th, like I said earlier, separately, and then put them all in one freezer bag and stick them in your freezer. So when you're ready to make a dish like this, and let's just say, for example, you got a family of 4, okay? Or even it's just you and your spouse. You pull 1/4 out, and then you do the second half of what she did, which is when she took a rolling pin and rolled it out. And by the way, if you don't have a rolling pin, there are things out there you can use. I know of a woman here on YouTube that uses a short broomstick, and it works great for her. Okay? You just got to get resourceful and inventive. But again, I'm going to put these links in the chat so you can go and click on them and watch them as often as you need. Sometimes they'll have a link of their own in their description to where you can get their recipes. If you like them a lot and you want to see what else they make, just subscribe and follow them. And I'm going to keep sharing with you other chefs that I follow and have learned quite a bit. And I'm going to go over next week with you. Well, Monday we're going to have court, John Paul Miller Federal Court. And we have a representative going there for us, a representative for Creator to Class magazine. You see her sometimes. Her name is Chana, and she's in the chat once in a while. Well, she is our journalist who's going to be there in the courtroom next Monday. And so we'll be covering that in the beginning of the week. At the end of the week, I'm going to get you a bread recipe, an easy bread recipe. I'll tell you the difference. I think I told you this last week. European bread tastes like bread. Over here, it's very sweet, and a lot of Europeans don't like it, So my husband makes his own bread. Last week, he made a bread that he put cheddar cheese and green onion in it. It was incredible. You just make an egg and you put it on top of that, and you've got an incredible meal. So I'm going to show you that, and then I was going to show you a meatball recipe. Now, you may say, bread and meatballs. Well, let me tell you something. The difference between making spaghetti and meatballs and having bread and meatballs, there's no difference. The bread or the spaghetti is both starch, and the meatball's a meatball. So if I show you how to make homemade bread, and then I show you how to make homemade meatballs, that's another meal. Guess what? Or you can mix it with this pasta that you saw today. And by the way, you don't have to make your pasta to look like that. You can make it thinner, like a spaghetti. You could cut it in squares and then put your thumb through it and make it look like a macaroni. You could do whatever you want. You don't necessarily have to go out and buy, um, a pasta maker. Now, I have the handheld pasta maker, not the electric one like he had. And you can find them on Amazon. If you guys are interested in knowing where to get those things, it's not very expensive. I can show that to you as well. I'm trying to save you money, not to get you to spend more money. Okay. But again, if you are interested in a pasta maker that you could just take out of the closet and hook it to the table, and you just kind of crank it with your hand and make whatever it is that you need to make, I will share that with you, the link to Amazon, and guess what? You could even make ravioli. You'd be amazed at what you can make with this thing. What kind of bread? Sourdough is a little more difficult. I want to do an easy bread. And it is a white bread. They call it like a peasant bread. Sourdough, you got to kind of make I forget the name of it, but it's some sort of a foundation that is stored away. And then whenever you make sourdough, you take a portion out of this foundation bread and you mix it with the flour, and that makes sourdough. So there's a very long process to sourdough bread. I didn't want to go into something like that. You have the mixer with the attachment for pasta. Oh, that's wonderful. And never used it because I thought it was too much work. No. And I'll tell you what, yeah, it gives you a reason to try. That's awesome. You will enjoy it. The first time you do it, you're going to say to yourself, why didn't I do this? That's what I thought. The first time I made pasta, I was like, why haven't I been doing this? I don't remember the last time I bought pasta. I just don't. It's been a while. It takes a lot for me. I mean, I won't lie. If I'm making a baked ziti, okay, then I will go out and buy pasta because I haven't really figured out how to make the zitis yet. But I'm sure there's a way to do it. And we'll all learn together too. If I learn something new, I'm going to share it with you. But like I said, next week we're going to do bread and we're going to do the meatballs. And most likely I might be introducing you to new chefs. One of them might be Jean-Pierre, and you're just going to get a kick out of that guy, like Vincenzo. All these European chefs have personality, and they're entertaining. So, no worries, just Robin. But anyway, like I said, there's Chana now. She's with us, Chana Taylor, and she is our representative for Creator to Class magazine, who will be in the courtroom next Monday. To see what's the outcome and the future for John Paul Miller. That should be very exciting. So we will be touching on that early next week. And as I said, at the end of the week, or, today's Thursday, maybe Thursday or Friday, we will go over the bread and the meatballs. I will be putting these links in the chat, as I said earlier. And if you've missed the beginning of the show, please go back and listen. I was kind of touching on what inspired me to do this, which was the single mothers who have kids to feed. And we're on EBT and we're buying all this junk at the grocery store. Things in boxes, things in bags. And they're making their kids very sick. They don't even realize it. We all did it. We all made these mistakes. Eating at the fast food restaurants. And to be honest, no matter the restaurant today, we don't know what we're eating. We have no control over what they're putting in our food or any of that. I also touched on the fact that, and I did tag the president in the White House, and I'm hoping they're listening. And maybe they learned something today with the making pasta and Alfredo, but I touched on the fact that maybe it's time to go after the fathers. I was saying how when I was a single mother, my ex-husband, who was the father of all 3 children, we had a divorce and his child support was court ordered and he paid some of it, but he owes, about over $60,000 in child support. And what the hell is the Department of Revenue doing about it? Doge is out there cutting off the EBT. Well, great. Why don't you go after the dads? Go find out who the fathers are of these children and get them to pay. And if they don't want to go to work and pay, you could put them in prison and they can work and pay. But at least the mother's getting some kind of help from the father. She didn't make these kids by herself. So, let's get with it. What is the Department of Revenue doing? And if the Department of Revenue, which is state funded, by the way, by tax money, no less, is not doing their job, well, then I don't want to pay for them anymore. And I don't think any other taxpayer should have to pay for them anymore. And in the meantime, women who are owed child support should not be paying taxes, should not be having money taken out of their Medicare or anything like that. They should get some sort of retribution. So I'm hoping that our administration today, that's very fair and is for the people, will look into this. And so that's why I brought deadbeats. Exactly. And that's the Department of Revenues. Let me get rid of that so I can share that comment. It's enough already. These men, they go out and they get jobs and they make paychecks and they buy cars and they rent apartments or they buy homes or whatever the hell. They get refund checks every year from IRS. And then these mothers are stuck taking care of these kids all by themselves. Why? And of course they're going to freak out when you take away their Section 8 or their EBT because they're the ones left taking care of these children. I don't care what pardon me. I don't care what circumstance, rather, brought these children on. Okay. In my condition, my situation was we were married. Okay. And we got divorced and it was court ordered. I get it. But these children didn't ask for parents that were married or unmarried. Okay. They're here. And they need to eat and they need to live and they need to be taken care of. So you got to help the mothers out a little bit, just like the Department of Education. Let me touch on this and I'll stop, biatching and moaning. The Department of Education in high school is pathetic. You have home economics, for example. What a stupid name to call that class. Because they teach you how to make a pie, but they don't teach you how to be able to afford the ingredients. Okay? And home economics should be teaching you how to be able to balance a checkbook. Home economics should be teaching you about credit scores. And, if you make this much in an income, this is how much your bills should be. That kind of thing. Not teach me how to make a friggin' apple pie. That's not home economics. And they've gotten away with this for so long. And then we throw our kids out into the world and go, okay, good luck. Good luck with what? And that's going as far back as when I was in high school. I didn't learn how to do any of those things except for learning it as I went along. And let me tell you something, I faced a lot of problems, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this. And yet the Department of Education gets federally funded. I know that President Trump's going after them and looking to shut them down. Great. Can we change the curriculum to where we actually teach high school kids how to be adults? Because their parents aren't doing it. Their parents don't even know. Obviously, if you watch YouTube and Twitter and TikTok, you'll figure that out. So, and college doesn't teach them anything except how to be liberal. And that's not helping either. The entitlement doesn't mean that they are ready to be out in the world. That makes them even dumber. So, I'm trying to help these mothers out because the world really has failed. The Department of Education, the Department of Revenue, it's like on and on and on. And they're fending for not just themselves, but children, dependents. They have dependents. And just to say do 20 hours of volunteer work or go do 20 hours at a job, that's not fixing the problem. That's adding to the problem. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't do those things, but if they've never been trained to do those things, to just throw them in the midst of that without some sort of solution is just being part of the problem. And that's how I see it. So I'm here to help fix at least the food problem. And I'm going to share recipes that I believe people can go, whether it be EBT or their own money. Even WIC could afford to get flour, butter, eggs, milk, cheese, and the basic ingredients to keep their families fed. And that's why I'm here to help with these shows. So that's what we're doing, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me. Like I said, I will put the links down in the chat after the show. And until I see you guys again, please stay safe. Stay in prayer. Psalm 91, Lord's Prayer, always in the name of Jesus Christ, our Messiah. And we will see you next week when John Paul Miller goes to federal court. Until then, please stay safe and God bless.